Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of 16 October 2017. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a period of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, our first order of business today, before I read all the formalities, is to welcome the mayor here for the Mayor's Award of Excellence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Mayor's Award for Excellence for August is presented to Public Information Specialist Jamie Wims, who works in our City Communications Division. I think you all know he was nominated in the categories of Customer Relations and Productivity by City Communications Manager Diane Gonzalez for his work with the Arts Council, the Lincoln Arts Council, earlier this year. Jamie is the Operations Manager for the Government and Education Access Channels and began working for City Communications in November of 2013. And I know you're curious, Mr. Chairman, his favorite singer is the Beatles. Favorite movie is Star Wars. Any one of them.
Excellent choices.
Okay. As the city's official agency for the arts, the Lincoln Arts Council, of course, presents the Mayor's Arts Awards celebration every year. This spring, the City Communications Division was asked to produce the awards video for the 2017 celebration on June 7th. This large and time-consuming task included on-camera interviews with all 16 of the award winners. Jamie was in charge of all the production work, which included creating a set for the interviews, lighting, and camera work. He then edited the interviews into 16 two-minute segments and added video and photos submitted by the award winners. He also created special graphics using the design and theme of the event, The Wizard of Arts. The editing process took several hours for each segment. The event was at Pinnacle Bank Arena for the very first time this year, and Jamie worked with arena staff to make sure the videos would play correctly the night of the celebration. The videos were also played on the Cube in the rail yard during the post-event reception. In addition, Jamie also produced the memorial segment for the event and did the camera work for the entire program the night of June 7th. After the event, Jamie took time to post all of the videos on YouTube, including the full-length interviews with the award winners. The award winners themselves were very pleased with the outcome. The mother of the Youth Award winner wrote, "Everything was so beautifully crafted and woven together. You really made the winners look their very best. You really know how to make magic happen." Another award winner wrote, "The videos were extraordinary and beautifully captured the spirit of each project. Thank you." Arts Council Executive Director Deb Weber wrote, "We could not have done the videos without the skills and expertise of Jamie. His positive and professional attitude is commendable, carried the project through its multiple changes, sometimes stressful, with a result that we are all proud of. The work is complex with a short turnaround time, and we know that we added a lot to his already full schedule. His work honors others, which is an amazing act of kindness," wrote Deb. So it's my pleasure to present Jamie Wims with the Mayor's Award of Excellence for August. Please join me in congratulating Jamie. I think Diane's here. Wanted to say a few words.
Thank you all. I just want to say Jamie and his staff probably do something every day that would earn them a Mayor's Award of Excellence. Jamie in particular, I just wanted to mention what a great attitude he had throughout this entire project and all his projects. He has a really great can-do attitude. He's very creative. And if you've been around Jamie very long, you also know he has a great sense of humor. So I also wanted to mention that just last week, LNK TV, in particular, Jamie, Bo, and the late Bill Luxford won an award from the Nebraska State Historical Society for their longtime work on the Brown Bag Lecture Series, which they've been doing for 20 years. Also, the lecture series coordinator, John Strope, was honored with them. And he wrote, he shared his comments at the event with me. He wrote, "I wish that all the citizens of Lincoln could know about the quality of the work of these city staff." So for Jamie and his crew, they're a real asset to the city, and we're very fortunate to have them.
Just wanted to say thank you, and I kind of get embarrassed. I like being behind the scenes a little bit more than in front of the camera, but one thing that is very important that I think Diane pointed out is that it's not just me, it's a team effort, and we've got a great staff back there that are all very hardworking and dedicated to what they do. I was also going to mention John Strope is also here that won the Nebraska State Historical Society Award with us. So. My family's here, my wife Patty, and my sons Zach and Nathan. And so anyway, but thank you.
I also wanted to introduce Deb Weber from the Arts Council. She's here as well, and she'd like to say a few words.
A great big thank you to you, Jamie. When I say it was stressful, let's make that a capital S with many exclamation points afterwards, only because we're a very small agency and we're always trying to do the best that we can to help celebrate the arts in Lincoln. And so he was a hero in our eyes. And the fact that people called us afterwards and said how much they appreciated that someone would take the time to present their story in such a positive way was very affirming to us. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jamie. Well deserved. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. The order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date, nor planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please read the first item?
Yes, we would request those giving testimony to please clearly state your name and address and to sign in on the sign-in sheet laying on the podium. Our first item is our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 16.
Would anyone like to testify on these items?
Of course I would. Good morning, or good afternoon. My name is Ron Lechner, and I'm the chairperson for the Veterans Memorial Garden. And on item number 17R248, the 3 individuals, the terms that you're extending through November of 2020, you couldn't have done a better choice of individuals. These 3 individuals tirelessly work for the garden and the items that we cover in the garden, and just to make it a place of honor for each person to come down to visit. So I just wanted to thank and put down Melissa Marsh, Mark Orr, and Melissa Wilkerson. My thanks to them for what they do for us, and thank you again for appointing them until 2020. Thank you. Now, should I sign here?
Yep.
Yes, please.
Any questions? Cindy?
Thank you. Ron, I just want to thank you for all you do out there. I have never been to an event out there that isn't absolutely wonderful and honoring of our vets. And so I appreciate the advisory council and your work out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay. Would anyone else like to testify on any of these items? Next item, please.
All right, if not, we can vote on these items. Items 1 through 3 were introduced by Shob.
Second?
Moved by Benny, seconded by Jane.
Moved.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Then items 4, 5, and 13 were introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Cindy. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then are our public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward, raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. Item 17 is the manager application of Scott Foley for the Lincoln Stars Hockey at 1880 North Antelope Valley Parkway.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the City Council.
Scott, would you raise your
oh, sorry.
hand? I think that's okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of City Council. My name is Scott Foley. I'm the Senior Director of Ticket Sales with the Lincoln Stars. I'm here today to take over as Liquor Manager of the Lincoln Stars at the Icebox Arena, located at 1880 Transformation Drive on Innovation Campus.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next are items 18 and 19. They're the application of Newmark Golf Course for a Class C liquor license at 8901 Augusta Drive, and the related manager application of Kinsey Bauer. Hi, Kinsey. Just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you really believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Kinsey Bauer of 8400 Augusta Drive, and I'm here on behalf of Newmark Golf Course, formerly Highmark Golf Course. We are doing a corporate restructure and rebrand, so I will be the new manager on the application as well as a new liquor license, and we are upgrading to a Class C for that license.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Bauer? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next are items 20 and 21. They're the application of Buffalo Wings and Rings for a Class I liquor license at 6822 O Street, and the related manager application of Michael Barton. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you.
Michael Barton. We are excited to open our new Wings and Rings at 6822 O Street. And this is just for the new license for that.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on these items? Next item, please.
All right, last is item 22, application of La Cabana to expand its Class I liquor license by the addition of an area measuring approximately 21 feet by 35 feet at 3223 Cornhusker Highway.
Is anyone here to testify on this item? Very well.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of items 17 through 21.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Jane. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And Mr. Chair, I'd move that item 22 be carried over to our next meeting.
Second.
And
Moved
of course,
by-
that was because no one
Right.
appeared.
Moved by John, seconded by Lyrian. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then are our public hearing resolutions. Item 23, a resolution to the City Council of the City of Lincoln in support of a Community Veterans Day Parade in order to honor local veterans and promote community spirit through an annual community parade.
Good afternoon, members of the council. I'm Rick Hoppy with Mayor Byler's office. I wanted to chat with you just briefly about some work that was done by staff in conjunction with Councilman Christensen that represents part of the substitute resolution that I believe you have received. As you may recall, the original resolution talked about the general area of Havelock being the location for the parade. Well, what most people don't realize when they think about these type of efforts is while the city does not necessarily organize the parade, we do play a fairly significant role in making those parades possible. For instance, the Public Works Department does multiple work to close various intersections, not only on the parade route, but various streets that lead to the parade route. So if you take that right turn accidentally, you don't get stuck and can't get out. They do a number of street closures in the early morning hours as well as barricading. You have to change turn lanes. Many times traffic signals need to be reworked. There's an entire plan for these type of things that has to be reviewed by the city engineering department. And on top of that, typically during a day where you have this many streets closed and that much traffic control in a busy area, you have 4 to 5 staff members that need to be there during the duration of the parade. And many times you're paying time and a half, or if it's a holiday, even 2.5 times their normal rate of pay. That is in addition to the fact that you need a number of off-duty police officers to make sure there's traffic control, to keep people safe, make sure people are crossing in appropriate places in the parade route, and making sure that pedestrian and car conflicts don't occur. On top of that, you have certainly many times message boards, things of that nature that you put out in the community, and a whole host of permits that have to be done by the organization sponsoring the parade in order to make all these things happen. So the staff met and talked about, okay, we want to make sure that Councilman Christensen, the council, was aware of that role that's played by the city in these parades. Then we got to talking a little bit about, is there potentially another location that would be in Northeast Lincoln and honor the spirit of the resolution? So we called Mr. Christensen and he came and talked us through. And we decided that Mahoney Park would actually be an excellent place for the parade because many of the things that we're talking about would no longer be necessary, or at least be a much more minimal version of that. There's a very large park, as you're well aware, with a road network through it that we think would be very adequate for the types of things that we'd have to do. We wouldn't have to have the barricades and staff to close the streets. The Parks Department reports that it has an excellent staging area for this type of parade. Obviously, the off-duty police officer need would be cut considerably if you're not closing streets. One of the other major advantages that we saw was right across the road is the Lancaster County Event Center. And the Event Center has acres of parking, which would be an ample thing for people that would come to the parade. And if we chose to, and we'll work this through, we could even have StarTran then provide shuttle rides to ensure safety, people are safely getting into the park as opposed to crossing 84th Street on their own. So for those reasons, we went to the councilman and suggested that maybe we could have that conversation. He was amenable, and I wanted to make sure to let you know what the background was moving this forward.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
They'll come up in a moment. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Ed Snobble. I'm a veteran, member of the American Legion here in Lincoln, VFW, AMVETS. And I was called by Mr. Christensen a couple weeks ago about supporting this endeavor. And since then, it's changed, I guess. My question is, why can't we have it downtown? Don't talk about the cost. We need to have it for the veterans. Why do we have Veterans Day? Who can tell me why we have Veterans Day? I know John can. I know Roy can. I don't know about Carl.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Carl knows.
Remember the veterans.
Huh? Why do we have it on November 11th?
Armistice Day.
Okay, it was Armistice Day. Why at 11 o'clock?
11th hour, 11th day, the 11th.
Because on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918, they signed the armistice at the end, World War I. And let's see, let me go through my notes here. It was in the fall of that's my wrong notes. Go back to this notes. It became an official military holiday by the U.S. Congress in 1923, I think is what it was. Because that's not the right year. Because it didn't get printed off on here. And then later on, they changed the word to veteran instead of Armistice Day to enter all veterans. And what do we have downtown? What do we have downtown? We have the Memorial Stadium that was dedicated in 1923. And what was it dedicated to? The veterans of the Spanish-American War, Civil War, and World War I veterans. And now also includes Korean War veterans, World War II, Korean War veterans, and the Vietnam era veterans, and all the different veterans. On Veterans Day, veterans of my era meet down there and march or walk over to the Veterans Memorial Garden. Why have it way out here? It takes it away from what the veterans want to do on that day. So move it downtown. Any questions?
Questions? I have an answer that I will give you. And sometimes beginnings are delicate things. And this is a beginning. And sometimes we have to plant the seed and hope it grows. And with your help, it will grow and we'll be able to move it one day. But to start off with, we're going to start a little more humbly.
Okay.
And then with great aspirations. Okay?
And I thank you for getting us started again.
Okay.
Ed, you brought back to memory many years ago, but in my early years on city council, there was that walk that the veterans did from Memorial Stadium, and that was on your own. There was no police barricades
Right.
or anything. It didn't cost a penny.
That's correct.
You sort of stayed on either sidewalk or one lane, as I recall.
Yeah, because I said this is still scheduled for this coming Veterans Day at 9:30 to meet down at the Memorial Stadium and get to the Memorial Park by 11 o'clock.
Have the police ever questioned that?
Okay, we're on the sidewalk. Any other questions?
Thank
you
sir.
for your support.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item?
Good afternoon again. Again, my name's Ron Lechner, the chairman of the Veterans Memorial Garden. Now, I'm fully behind starting something, yes, 100%. And if it needs to be in Mahoney Park, outstanding. But I do not wish to have it affected for the program in Veterans Memorial Garden. Our program starts at 11 o'clock in the morning. So I do not wish to have it in, be in conjunction with that. Have it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, you can't have it much later than that because it'll be dark. But at the same time, I don't want it to be affected by having our event down at Veterans Memorial Garden.
I can tell you that that was part of the discussion with the city staff, and we all agreed that we would not step on what you're doing.
Because, I mean, I think that the garden is, again, a place of honor, and it's the perfect place to hold our event. It's just a shame most of the time the weather doesn't cooperate and it's not warm enough to have the event in the garden. So, and then just as a caveat to that, for those of you that do not know, on November 11th this year they're going to dedicate a 9/11 monument, I call it that, for the fallen soldiers and individuals from Nebraska or related to Nebraska, and that will start at noon on November 11th. Lee Terry, is going to be here to speak. There's going to be several other speakers, and the names are being listed on the granite as we say it now or start with it now. So I would offer this to all of you as a, come on down, please. Each one of you, I'll make sure that you get announced that you're there. I appreciate, for those that have come in the past, I always try to get up to you for those that have come. And I thank you for not stepping on our toes down at Veterans Memorial Garden. Thank you.
Well, one thing I can also assure you, we went into lengthy discussions, and the ordinance, or not the ordinance, but the resolution, is written with enough flexibility so that we can take into account football games, your events, and other community events that take place. So these can be on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on all sorts of different variables. So we want to make it fit in, and we want to make it something that everyone can attend, regardless of what other events are going on.
Understandable, but again, November 11th is a day of specialness to all veterans and anybody else that should be to them. I'm sorry, but it is a day of honor on that day of November 11th, being honoring just veterans, both past and present, that are still serving as well. Okay, thank you.
Are there questions?
Any other questions?
John?
Yes, John.
Do you have any thoughts on what Ed was talking about, somehow working on embellishing the walk from Memorial Stadium?
Oh, I'd love to do that. I mean, I could go on, as long as, to go back to that same thing, as long as it's on November 11th, I don't think it's going to affect, Galen and those that formally do the walk from Memorial Stadium. I think they're going to do it anyway. You'll have the Legion riders that usually block off the streets, kind of thing, and people have always been supportive on no matter what day by either honking their horn. The marchers, walkers, you stay on the sidewalk. Now, my ideal thing would probably start it from the Capitol. If it shortens it down any, start it from the Capitol building with a dedication there, and then you could have the marching bands just go on down to Veterans Memorial Garden, and again, we could be the crescendo, if you want to put it that way. I want it, because I could talk all day. You might not get rid of me if you let me up here too much longer about talking about Veterans Garden, because I'll go back to the people that are on the council, and what they do each day for me, as a kind of a selfish guy, because I demand a lot from them. So, okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, and I just want to follow up, with the National Guard and the Army and the Air Force here. They could fly a KC-135 down, and that would block everything.
They could do that. You could probably, shib off the wings, and you could get a helicopter to come down and from Grand Island and fly in and stuff for that if you wanted to.
I'm just wondering if we could use some of the personnel there, if there's some leniency there.
We could always check into that with General Bohack, and stuff to see what availability there would be, of course. Kind of thing. I don't want to bother him necessarily on November 11th because he'll be busy with the 9/11 monument as well, but I would always be interested in helping or leading that conversation that would help, anything that would help us out. Anything else, John? Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing me today.
Would anyone else like to testify?
Sign in again.
Please come forward.
My name is Bruce Troutwine, and there was a significant issue made about the logistics cost. Now, I understand that the original thought was it was going to cost about $60,000, which is a considerable sum of money for paid staff. But Boo at the Zoo, okay? That's a community event. 2 police officers, 5 hours a night for 5 days. Are they volunteers? Does anybody on the council know? I've been down at my Masonic Lodge. We also run parking. I've seen those officers out there every night of Boo at the Zoo. I've also seen Parks and Recs out there setting their barricades. Obviously, either they're flexing their hours or they're on overtime. That's got to cost money. That's a public event. We have the Lincoln Marathon. What are the logistics involved in the Lincoln Marathon? How much does it cost for that? Shutting down streets, controlling traffic. Granted, you know, it's a wonderful PR event. Thousands of people come in for it. I can't guarantee you that there'd be thousands of veterans that would want to go from the Capitol down to the Lincoln Memorial Garden. But I'm sure there'd be enough to justify it. And I think if you check with some of the employees, LPD, and the people that put out the barricades, they'd find enough volunteers who are veterans that would be willing to do that on their time. It's a consideration. It saves money. I just think moving it to Mahoney Park, pushing the veterans to the back of the bus, keeping them out of sight again. I find that disgraceful. Maybe we can just get the mayor to build a new bike trail for $800,000 and we can have it there. Just a suggestion. I thank you for your time.
Other questions? Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 24, hearing on the 1- and 6-year streets and highway program as required by state statute.
This public hearing is held each year to fulfill the statutory requirements for the 1- and 6-year streets and highways program. Action was taken by the City Council resolution adopting the first 2 years of the capital improvement program budget by resolution number 899504 on August 22nd, 2016. It should be noted that the capital improvement program is a funding document only. Citizens have 10 days from today to submit any statements or exhibits to the Public Works and Utilities Department. Therefore, all statements and exhibits received on or before October 26, 2017 will become part of the public hearing record. These statements should be forwarded to Randy Hoskins, Assistant City Engineer, Engineering Services, 949 West Bond Street, Suite 200, Lincoln, Nebraska 68521. The statutory requirement ensures that an integrated system of public roads is provided for the general welfare of the state, counties, and municipalities. The program is administered by the State Board of Public Roads Classifications and Standards. The capital improvement program for fiscal years 2018 through 2023 reflects an average annual expenditure of nearly $39.31 million. This average annual expenditure is comprised of $23.43 million of city revenues, made up of wheel tax and impact fees, $6.78 million in federal aid, $5.19 million in state gasoline tax, and $3.91 million in other funds, including the Railroad Transportation Safety District.
Randy Hoskins, Assistant City Engineer. As noted, this is something of a formality that we are required to do every year to get our funding from the state. As was noted, basically this is the capital improvement program that was previously approved by the council, and that's what we're moving forward with. So.
Okay, questions? Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 25, approving an amended conservation easement agreement between Apples Way Incorporated, the City of Lincoln, the Lower Platte South Natural Resources District, to modify the terms and boundaries of the existing easement on property generally located at the intersection of South 27th and Rokeby Road.
Good afternoon, Council. Tim C., City Law Department. What you have before you is an amendment to an existing conservation easement that is located at approximately South 27th Street and Rokeby Road. This is part of a development at that location previously approved as Iron Ridge. The area was annexed as part of that proposal, and what you have before you is again, a change in a conservation easement. On the screen, you can see a brief map. What you'll find is that the existing conservation easement is represented by the dashed lines. So this is South 27th Street, Rokeby Road. The dashed line comes generally in this vicinity, around here, as well as on the west side of Rokeby Road. The areas to be added to the conservation easement are represented by the series of lines. So here in the northwest, along the residential properties, and then some small areas down here. The areas to be removed from the conservation easement would be here on the west side of South 27th Street, as well as across the road, and a small area to the south. The net effect is a approximate increase of 1.56 acres. The flood storage capacity of the conservation easement area would be increased by approximately 22%. And the amendment was previously accepted by the Lower Platte South NRD. So what's before you is to accept the new, the amended easement, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item?
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Mark Hunziker, appearing on behalf of Apples Way LLC, the developer of this project. We've had great cooperation with the Lower Platte South NRD and city staff on working out the new contours of this easement. Because the area on the east side in particular is so flat, it was fortunate that we were able to increase the flood storage capacity by so much. We were able to increase the area by about 1.5 acres, but the flood storage capacity increase of 22% is pretty significant. In addition to that, what we plan to do on the east side in particular is to plant that area rather than having, the new language will prohibit row crops. We will plant that area to native grasses. And on the west side, we've sold the ground to a sod farmer. And so between the two, those uses will both contribute a good deal to improving water quality going into Salt Creek and hold back any erosion that may be coming off this. This is not a fast-moving area of water. It backs up because of the constraints at the railroad underpass. But regardless, I think there's still a certain amount of erosion that occurs during a flood, and we think that the native grass and the sod will improve that immensely. So I think it's a win-win for everyone here. The developer ends up with a little bit easier piece of commercial ground to develop on the 27th Street corner, and a little bit more in the way of townhouse development on the west side. It also improves the access points to 27th Street in particular by getting down into this area far enough away from the intersection at 27th and Rokeby. So we think everything about this is a good thing for both sides. And we try to answer any questions you have.
Lorene.
We saw some of the details of this project before. There were questions about emergency vehicle access. Does this assist with that as well then, would you say?
This part of it is not necessarily assisting with emergency vehicle access. The pavement of Rokeby Road, I think, will help with that.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Thank you,
sir. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 26, authorizing an application to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission for Land and Water Conservation Grant Funding Assistance for the renovation of 2 neighborhood park playgrounds, Irvingdale and Rudge Parks.
Good afternoon, Council. J.J. Yost, Planning and Construction Manager for the Parks and Recreation Department. Just a little introductory information about this grant application. This is our 2017 grant application for a land and water conservation grant with the desire for, or looking for financial support to renovate 2 playgrounds. This is playground equipment both in Irvingdale and Rudge Parks. Both of those facilities today are a little bit more than 20 years old. Definitely in need of replacement to become compliant, to bring them into compliance with consumer safety product standards for fall safety, for ADA access, and for safety product council safety standards. We're requesting $135,000 in Land and Water Conservation Fund program grant, and we would be renovating the playgrounds and adding picnic shelters to both of these facilities with those funds. The matching funds, they require a 50%, the grant requests, or the grant standards require a 50% match. That would be coming from the Parks Department CIP, dollars that are identified for playground repair and replacement, along with a contribution from the Lincoln Parks Foundation and a private donation from the nearby Country Club neighborhood. As you may recall from previous grant applications, and accepting the grant, the city is agreeing that the park parcels will be used for public outdoor recreation purposes in perpetuity. They can't be converted to other uses, other land uses, without going through a replacement or conversion process. Portions of both Irvingdale and Rudge Park were donated to the city around 1914, and additional parcels were added to both of these park sites in 1915 and 16. So these sites have served as neighborhood public parks for a little over 100 years at this time. In both park sites, the new replacement playground will be relocated in conformance with a master plan for the park areas that were developed over the last couple of years. And so in the case of Irvingdale, the playground will move a little bit closer, a little more accessible to a parking area, kind of a more central location in the park. And at Rudge Park, we would relocate the playground to better serve kind of the primary population or service area that it provides service to at the western end of the park. These service areas for both playgrounds, the service areas are located in Census Tracts 22 and 23. They have a higher poverty rate and minority representation and lower home ownership rates in Lincoln as a whole. So it is important that we get these playgrounds renovated, keep them operable, and serve this, provide service to the service area that they fall adjacent to. And I would be glad to answer any questions.
Cindy.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today, JJ. So I was looking at the fact sheet, and it talked about the city's 50% match would come from the CIP, and you mentioned that. But then you also mentioned here today the Parks Foundation and the neighborhood up there at the Country Club. So are you anticipating that part of the $135,000 city match would come from those sources? Am I hearing you correctly?
You are correct. So we're requesting $135,000, which obviously would have to be matched with $135,000. $130,000 would come from the Parks CIP, and then between the Parks Foundation and the donation from the Country Club, that's another. They're offering or are providing another $5,000 to get us to the $135,000.
I see. Thank you.
That was my first question. You also mentioned there's strings attached of it being in perpetuity in parkland, and I know recently or near past we had another issue on those strings that get attached to these grants and whether it's worth the cost. Could you comment on that?
Well, certainly, and you are correct. Accepting a land and water conservation grant then places an encumbrance on the property. It's federal funds that place an encumbrance on the property that says that it has to be maintained, kept in public outdoor recreation use. If we were to go away from that use, we would have to go through a conversion process where the property is replaced at another location. We did some research on the deeds are almost impossible. They're handwritten deeds from the early 1900s associated with these properties, so they're very difficult to read. We can find enough information off of those deeds to understand that some of this property was gifted to the city and some of it was purchased, but it has been in neighborhood park use for over 100 years now, and we, given the densely populated area that surrounds these properties, it's hard for us to imagine any other use other than public park use for these properties. So we feel very comfortable accepting that string, if you will.
Okay. Now, if it's in perpetuity, does that not, and I'm just kind of trying to get the factual elements here, would that not place more costs on the parks in the future for maintenance and so forth? So we're not just saying we'll do the 130 of the 135 match, 1,000 match, but also then, because it's in perpetuity, and I grant you, knowing these two parks, they probably stay that way, but with the improvements and all, what does that do to the maintenance level and future burdens on Parks and Rec Department?
Well, it doesn't have any effect on the maintenance level. We would continue to maintain the park as we do today, and even if at some point in the future, which will happen, that playground, this new playground, would wear out, there isn't a stipulation that says we have to replace the playground with a new playground in the future. It just says that the property that is defined as the park, that parcel has to remain in public outdoor recreation use. That could be as simple as an open play field that has public access. So I don't believe the maintenance requirements change. Now, if the city chose to use the parks for some other purpose other than outdoor recreational use, then we have the expense of replacing the property at some other location.
Thank you.
Okay, Lyrian.
Thanks, JJ, for all your work on this. I know it's been a big effort, and part of it, I think the work that you've done leading up to this involves some of the sort of stormwater management. Can you talk about the special sort of topographical features of Irvingdale Park and Rudge Park? It seems to me that in terms of developing it for other purposes, there are some constraints on those properties.
Yes, that is a very good point. There is a drainage way, a channel that runs through both parks. It actually starts up in the country club property itself, runs down through Irvingdale Park, actually in a culvert underneath Stransky Park, and then through Rudge Park. And really, we're in the process right now of finalizing plans, working in cooperation with Watershed Management to do some channel bank stabilization work of that drainage way that runs through Irvingdale Park. That was part of the last stormwater bond issue, and so we have the funding secured, and we're moving ahead, getting ready to move ahead with construction on the drainage way again through the park. And actually, that's provided a wonderful opportunity for us to make some improvements to the park that really are both an enhancement or a stabilization measure to the channel work, but they also allow us to provide a little bit better park access going back and forth across that drainage way as it winds through the park. So this is a great opportunity. There's lots of work going on in that park now, and this feels like a very good opportune time to be doing the playground renovation as well.
Isn't there also a water storage facility underneath Irvingdale that you've decommissioned, but
there is
that kind of adds to the complexity of the site, doesn't it?
There is the old civil defense storage area in Irvingdale Park that we use very heavily for park storage today. Okay. So that facility remains today, and as I said, that's actually a very important storage facility from our maintenance standpoint.
Gotcha.
Carl.
My daughter's learned how to ice skate at Rudge Park. Any thoughts about bringing that facility back?
You had to go there, yeah. Yes, as you know, we, for years and years before my time, operated a skating facility in that depressed area in Irvingdale, or excuse me, in Rudge Park, at the western end of Rudge Park. We no longer do that. Just a very difficult means and very expensive to maintain ice for ice skating and that. So we stopped that usage and really went to two primary facilities, Oak Lake Park and Holmes Lake Park, for our outdoor ice skating several years ago. Probably no plans to bring back that ice skating, but we do have future thought of developing that west end of the park, that depressed area, into a water quality cell, kind of a future phase of this stormwater improvements that we're making now. So we do hope to kind of return a water feature to there someday, but not for ice skating.
Okay.
Okay. John?
Another follow-up on the matching that the city does and the 5,000 that you had from the country club and the Parks Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Any chance others might contribute more? That seems like I appreciate the contributions,
yeah.
the pledges. Parks are kind of a community thing, and are there other organizations, or would these entities consider adding a little bit more to help?
Well, we hope there are more opportunities to speak to neighbors, to area residents and perhaps businesses. We have a master plan that we've developed for really the complex of Irvingdale, Stransky, and Rudge Park. They're all contiguous to one another, just separated by some streets. We, really at the urging of a very interested neighbor, we partnered with the NRD and the Lincoln Parks Foundation to develop a master plan for future improvements to all three of those parks, so that we do things perhaps in concert with one another in those parks and not duplicate the opportunities they provide. It's a great master plan. It carries some of the items on the master plan carry some hefty price tags that probably won't work into our CIP anytime soon, quite honestly. And so we do hope there's perhaps the ability to fundraise again in cooperation with our Parks Foundation here in the future to do some other things in the parks and make some other improvements that go beyond these playgrounds themselves.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 27, assessing public health nuisance abatement costs associated with the clearing of public nuisances by the Health Department to the following benefited properties: 2919 Apple, 1004 Peach, 1838 South 10th, 1546 South 21st, 1434 North 27th, 2725 A Street, 301 South 54th, 520 South 25th Street, 800 Garfield, 1336 North 39th, 1245 North 21st, 1237 North 21st, 4300 D, 4842 Adams, 112 West Dawes, 2975 Holdridge, 3000 South 46th Street, 1409 North 21st Street, 815 North 24th Street, 1533 Grace Avenue, 2200 DeVoe, 2545 Teresa Street, number F14, 2545 Teresa Street, number F11, 353 South 26th Street, and 1112 New Hampshire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Christensen and members of the council. I'm Shabana Loster, the Health Director of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department, and each year the Health Department is required to bring the costs incurred for abating public health nuisances on private property to the City Council. Abatements are conducted to clear properties of conditions which can contribute to public health problems, including rodent or insect breeding or injury. Such conditions are a violation of the Lincoln Municipal Code 8.26, nuisances, and property owners and/or tenants with such conditions are given written notice to eliminate the nuisance. After proper notice in due time, if such conditions are not eliminated, the Health Department contracts for the abatement and the cleanup. All associated costs are assessed against the property owner in accordance with Lincoln Municipal Code 8.26. The cost of the assessments before you, are for the time frame of September 1st, 2016 to August 31st, 2017. Assessments do not apply to real estate cleared of a public nuisance where costs have already been paid in full. I have Scott Holmes, the Environmental Public Health Division Manager. He's also here with me today. And if you have any questions, either Scott and I will do our best to answer your questions.
Questions? John?
Yes, among the properties there, are some of those repeat offenders, or could you comment on that?
Yes, sir. We have those records, Scott.
And the reason I ask is I know in the past we have had some property owners that have come up quite often, and we just want compliance.
Scott Holmes, Manager of the Environmental Health Division with the Health Department. John, you asked a very good question, and yes, in fact, there are several properties that had repeats. That's not uncommon. As you mentioned, in the past we've seen the same, and it's frustrating, but it's what happens. Yeah.
Anything you're trying to do on those particular properties to help them or encourage them to comply?
Sure, yeah. The key issue here for most of them is that they have not had garbage service. And so for a while, they seem to keep it under control, but we've strongly encouraged them to hire our local private companies to provide them garbage service so that they have it going away regularly.
Okay, other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, we'll go on to our public hearing ordinances second reading. Item 28 is amending Chapter 2.76 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the personnel system.
Afternoon, Council. Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. The amendments here to 2.76 are, for the most part, administrative in nature, although there's quite a few of them. It comes about as a result of the LMCEA union contract moving from a variable merit pay system to a step pay plan. If you recall back when we approved that contract a few months ago, that was one of the big standout issues. So now we must change code where they were in the code for variable merit. Now they have to move to the section of the code that addresses step pay plans. So merely in many places striking an M for the M pay plan or inserting an M for the M pay plan in the various sections of the applicable code. Also, there's a few grammatical changes, adding his/her or things such as that, but it does not change the intent of anything. It's only administrative in nature.
Okay. Now, Doug, just for clarifying, we've already gone over this and approved the contract, correct?
You approved the labor contract previously. This is now just revising the code, so it's in concert with that contract.
Okay. Other questions for Doug? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
Next is item 29, approving a real estate sales agreement between the city and Kelly Custom Homes, doing business as Nebraska Cottage Company, for the sale of city-owned property generally located at 3268 Randolph Street.
Members of the City Council, David Landis, Urban Development Department Director, the applicant in this case. This is a picture of a house that's no longer there at 3268 Randolph Street. You would have to have a very keen eye to see the red tag that's right there on the front door, as it was red tagged for months and months. The owner at that time was a non-resident living out of state, had done nothing to the house. It was overrun. It was uninhabitable. It also had a relatively complex ownership problem with bank foreclosures and a series of liens. The first step that we did was, with the action taken with the support of the owner, it was demolished by the Building and Safety Department. We used the funds that we have on our annual basis to make those kinds of changes, and the building was demolished, giving us back the land. The land has an assessed value of $14,700. It did have some expenses against it, water bills that were city water bills that had to be paid, maintenance for cutting of grass, which we did and then needed to be paid, and some back taxes. So to clear the title completely, the city did pay $12,676 to handle all of those pieces of work that needed to be done to get us clear title. And we have had, since the signs have gone up, an offer to sell the land. The offer is for $18,000, which means that we make back, and with something more than what we put into it, at least as far as covering costs and the like, and higher than the assessed value of the property. The intention is to have a single-family home ownership situation in which this kind of cottage-style house will be built. The new owner, should you approve this, has already approached Building and Safety and the Planning Department to see if their plans are consistent with expectations of the neighborhood and the like. In fact, the neighborhood is thrilled simply with the demolishing, but this will be a nice, handsome addition as well. So in one of the rare cases in which our cost back to us, or the sale price that we get back, is in fact higher than assessed value, and it's higher than the costs that we put in to get us down to the bare ground to sell. Are there questions I can answer for you?
Cindy?
Thank you. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate that we got a nice offer in comparison to the cost involved. I did want to ask you questions about the proceeds going to the Advanced Land Acquisition Fund, because you mentioned a number of different things that were done, probably in abatement and so forth, and we just finished talking with the folks about those kinds of abatements. So do those departments that have been involved in that abatement, they also get the proceeds to reimburse their?
We took money out of the Advanced Land Acquisition Fund. We paid the water department. We paid for the maintenance of the grounds, the weed control that was there. We paid the taxes. Only 14% of that comes back to the city. And so we used the $12,000 from the Advanced Land Acquisition Fund to put it into shape, and then we'll return the $18,000 back into the Land Acquisition Fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Yeah,
Carl.
just one other cost that I wasn't sure about, the demolition cost. Was that included in that?
$15,000.
Okay.
And that's right in the middle. We certainly had higher costs than that. It's rare to see something at the $10,000 level. $15,000 is a very middle number for us in the demolition.
This is just one of those areas where we don't make money on a project. I mean, it's costly to demolish, to pay all the bills, to get everything right. We never sell it to recoup all those costs. But what we have left is a house like you have pictured here, a nice house in the neighborhood that increases values of the neighbors, decreases their stress and aggravation, and it's a good thing for everybody.
The very first thing that a neighborhood wants is they want a building like that that's deteriorated, unoccupied, and falling apart, and red tagged to be gone. At that point, we've achieved a significant improvement for the neighborhood, that we then replace it with an expansion of the tax base. Because imagine that house is on that property. That's going to have $140,000 of valuation, and it'll add to the tax base of the city. We, if we don't do this, would continue to have expenses that would run up against us. So I think this allows us to clear the decks, remove blight and substandard conditions, and replace it with single-family home ownership.
Okay, John.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. Looking at the fact sheet that accompanies this legislation, you have in there the cost of the total project at that $12,678.57. Wouldn't it be better to include those demolition costs, because that was, I guess it depends how you define cost of project, but it was a cost that the city has incurred.
I normally expect that you're going to want to know that. I did it verbally this time, but if you'd like me to make an annotation of that in the future, I'll do my best to try to remember to include
just so
that.
we have the picture there, and then taking because basically the 18,000 barely covers the demolition costs, let alone the other. So, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is public hearing ordinances, third reading, item 30, change of zone 17011, application of Roger Schwissow Revocable Trust for a change from AG agricultural to R3 residential on property generally located at North 49th and Alvo Road.
Good afternoon. I'm Roger Schwiesel, 1354 Pelican Bay Place. And of course, we're trying to get a fourth edition out there. And we're trying to address some problems that was brought up earlier with some drainage issues we had. And here's a drainage map that we're installing. The people on the west side of 49th Street we're having our backyard be flooded from sump pumps. And it's really flat back there. We're taking and we've moved the water to the front of the house. And in doing this red line here, we're trying to install a drain line. I understand the permit just got issued today for us to do that. We'll pick the water up that's coming, that was flooding the backyards, put it in a sewer drainage system and dump it in the inlet down there on 50th Street, which should solve the problems of the backyards being wet. And then as the fourth edition goes in, excuse me, Lyle Loth with ESP Engineering, we're lowering a culvert that goes under 49th Street, which will double the slope that's in their backyards, which will happen with the grading of 49th Street. So that should give us some positive drainage back there. Okay. On Kevin Nelson's house, his house was built real flat. And I think what happened, I don't know this for a fact, but we shot this and we shot the curb elevation. The city had a minimum elevation of the openings in the back of the house. What it looks like happened is the builder took that minimum elevation and used that thinking that this is elevation that had to be established. Well, what the minimum elevation is 1 foot above floodplain. In doing that, he only had about 5 inches slope in his whole backyard, where you're supposed to have 6 inches of foundation sticking out and 6 inches away in the first 10 foot. He didn't have that much in his whole backyard. I don't know how he ever got an occupancy permit issued because the dirt back away from the house is level. I mean, there was no fall whatsoever. But we've drained this out. Kevin and I are working on it together. He's paying half the cost and I'm paying half the cost, and we're taking care of it. It was a problem actually caused by the builder, not anything that we did, but anyway, we are taking care of it. Now here's actually, that shows the elevation of the yard, and you can see they're just, I mean, the ground here next to the patio is high. Over here it's even higher than what his patio was. And over here he's got 5/100 of fall here and about 30 foot. And here there was about, well, 6/10 of fall. I mean, it was just flat, and that's the way it was built. Yet over here, we've got over 2 foot of fall back here that could have been used, which wasn't. But we should have positive drainage now. On Leanne and Pat Johnson's house, that's another one that they were hollering because the water was coming across their, cutting across their yard. Here's a picture of their yard. Right here is where the water should be draining. Now this is after these 3 houses were built, looks like probably before the lawn was in on this one. And there was drainage there. Well, what's happened there is they've gone in, the water used to come through here. This got built up with mulch. All along their whole side of their house is built up with mulch. This is where the water is supposed to be running. Right now the water's cutting across, catty-cornered here. There's no water standing. It's just running across their yard, and they're not liking that. But, and I told, if they would take this mulch out of here, I'll make a swale. I own this lot over here. I could make a swale and we could try to get it to go under this fence here. I think that's where it's probably supposed to go. It's going to be going on to the neighbors behind that fence though. But I mean, it should be going right where this fence line is where it's really supposed to go. And the other one was, and like I said, they never had a problem until about 2 years ago, and that was about the time that mulch got put in by them pedestals. So I think that problem was actually created by their landscaping.
Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. All right. Would anyone else like to testify?
Members of the council, my name is Bob Benish. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a home builder here in Lincoln. I'm also a land developer, so I wear 2 hats. So we build a lot of houses in this town, and we put in a lot of lots. We encounter these problems a lot. And And when I say a lot, 1 out of 200 is a lot, which means not that often. So what I'm getting at is I heard about this issue, and I saw the delays that Mr. Schwiezow has gone, and I haven't visited with him very much, but I did go out there and I looked at these lots and these houses. And because an issue has come up that, well, maybe we need some more regulation. You know, how can we prevent this from happening again? And I looked at it and I said, you know, this was not a problem that Roger created. His development is very nice. He did a very good job. This was an issue where somebody made a mistake. And honestly, it's a civil matter, in my opinion, between the homeowner and that builder. That builder probably made a mistake. And I got to be honest with you, I've made mistakes too. I've put houses too low accidentally. I've put them too high. You know, I've had houses where we've come into this issue where, you know, we cut an opening too low. Guess what? You got to fix it. You know, and there's many different ways you can fix this problem. I don't think this was a development issue. It was a home builder issue. And that brings me to my next point is, so what can you do to prevent it? How can we prevent these issues? Well, more regulation, you know, make building and safety do more about it? No, there isn't much they can do different. Setting heights, you can't. It's all physical. You have to be there. You have to shoot your points. You've got to know what you're doing. And I think most builders in this town have a great reputation of doing a great job. I don't think it's a major issue. I come across it as a developer. I'll get a home builder that will come in. They will put in their basement and they'll grade their lot and they'll block all the drainage, you know, and I have to go in, I have to call that builder up and say, hey, wait a minute, water's supposed to go this way across the back of these lots to drain. You need to remove that dirt so it can drain. And I have to enforce those issues. And I want you guys to know that this is not a monumental issue. This does not happen very often. Like I said, we deal with it. As a developer, we get that phone call from another builder who's building next to a builder that has maybe done something wrong. We go in, we say, hey, fix it. If he doesn't, we have things in place to take care of it. We have contracts. It's written in all our contracts that you can't change the drainage patterns that are established. They run with the land. If a homeowner comes in 2 years later, like in this one case, he's come in a couple years later, put in mulch and blocked the drainage, we have the power as the developer to come back in and say, hey, look, that you changed the original drainage pattern, you need to change it back. And we have those legal powers in our contracts. So, and I think if we wanted to accomplish anything, and I've been to meetings with Public Works and with city and with Building and Safety, we came up with some great ideas that we can help educate builders, promote drainage way, you know, diagrams to builders so that they can follow the drainage. But I can tell you that Roger's done a great job there, and I hope that you approve his development. He needs to get going. So, any questions?
Questions? Jane?
Bob, you said that the developer has the authority to enforce it. So how do you think this issue should have been handled?
If it was my development,
yeah,
I would have walked out there and I looked at the issue and I said, whoa, there's not enough drainage here from the bottom of, or the top of foundation to the back of lot. It was a mistake. So there were, luckily in this case, there was plenty of room to regrade. With the developer's permission, I would have regraded the property line and I would have regraded that out. I would have forced the builder to do it. And I know I'm a home builder, and I know there's a lot of home builders out there who are going to be mad that I'm saying that, but it's the responsibility. I mean, if I build you a house and I do something, if the front driveway cracks, that's not a building and safety problem. You know, it's going to crack, but if it falls and it falls apart, I'm on the hook. You know, I must have done something wrong. So you need to come after me. I mean, it becomes more of a civil issue between a home buyer and home builder. Okay, but that's how I would have handled this. I would have gone to the home builder. Roger's a super nice guy. He's a very reputable businessman. He's been in town for years. I knew him when I was a kid, and he's doing what he feels is right, and he's taking care of himself, which is awesome. That's fantastic. So.
Okay, other questions? Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Would anyone else like to testify?
Lyle Loth with Rig Engineering on behalf of Roger. One of the things that did come up and we were requested to do was prepare an administrative amendment for the balance of the project. We've now completed that. We've addressed some of these drainage issues, done some additional calculations. We submitted that to the staff last week, and we haven't gotten any response back, but we believe we've answered all those questions. So we think we're moving in the right direction. We're trying, and so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Questions?
Yes, Jane.
When do you think some of the remediation work will get started and completed so that the homeowners can see some results?
Well, you can see the result on Kevin's house. That work has already been started. We just got the permit to put in this sump pump drainage system, so I expect that will be happening here in the next few days. Some of the other things, I'll comment on the Johnson property, which is the last one that Roger was visiting about. One of the things that the homeowner himself could do would be to redirect his roof drains off of his house. This coming up? Yes. This pinkish area here, this is the vacant lot that Roger owns. There's 5,450 square feet that drains to that corner. This is part of the roof drop from the Johnson Kathy's house. There's 1,277 square feet that drains through two roof drains off the west side of the house. That contributes, because this is an impervious area and Rogers is dirt, grass, whatever, this contributes approximately 40% of the water that gets to this point. If he were to take this roof drain and direct it out to the street and either move this roof drain to the back corner of his house and let it spread out over his yard, that would eliminate 40% of the water at this location. That's something that Roger can't do, but it is something that the homeowner can do himself or have done, or have his builder do it. And I think that would go a long ways to alleviating some of the problems as well. On the other side of the street, on the Vodenall property, let's see if I've got, this is off of the original preliminary plat that shows that the drainage, this large dashed line is the drainage area. So from this line, the water was supposed to drain to the south to Becky's Way. This is the lot line along the east side of the Vodenall property. Before utilities were put in and the paving, after the mass grading was done, we had a 1% slope from this point back here out to the future street. After the utilities were done, that same condition still existed. After the home was built, this area was filled in and essentially blocked the drainage so that there's considerable ponding back in this area. It doesn't get very deep because it can get about 3 inches deep, and then the water runs over the sidewalk to the west. So there's a sizable area there, but Roger initially asked the homeowners if they would allow him to regrade that drainage ditch, put it back the way it should have been, and they didn't want to do that. They just refused. So then Roger did put in 2 area inlets. Got too many drawings here. There we go. So we put 2 area inlets back here, and then a small diameter pipe, a 3-inch diameter pipe, out through the curb into the street. And that basically drains that area. That pipe has a capacity of about 37 gallons per minute. During a 1-inch rainfall, that would drop approximately 13,600 gallons into this half-acre that drains to that location. Now, depending on how quickly that comes, some of that water is going to go to the west. It's going to go over the sidewalk and go to the west. It won't get any deeper than 3 inches up on that transformer. After the rain stops, there will be about 4,000 gallons left in that little holding area. It'll take about 2 hours to drain that out. So, in my opinion, that's a very adequate fix. The one downside of that the city doesn't like is that the street is very flat. So it's a potential for freezing during the winter months and causing a hazard. So that's why we're doing the sump drainage system over on the east side of, the west side of 50th Street, east side of 49th, and north side of Alvo Road. So we have a place to go with that water. We're not putting it out in the street. So, okay.
Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item?
Cameron Vinall, 5010 Becky's Way Road. They were talking about my department or property. I was told a concrete swale to be fixed there, and I said I didn't want a concrete swale. So that's what I was told, and I said I don't want that. That's what we have been told. As far as the water going over the sidewalk on the side that he was saying, it does not go over the sidewalk. He doesn't live there. I've been out there. I've been watching it, and it does not go over the sidewalk at all. As far as he was saying 3 inches, like I said, I've been out there. It's exceeded the 3 inches, more than that. I've seen where my bark has come up to the spots, and it's at least 6 inches. For the probably 3 hours or maybe a little more, it drains out. It takes that long to drain out of that area. So my strawberry herb patch is completely flooded all the time when it get rain. So I got to raise my whole strawberry patch because I can't get decent strawberries out of there. As far as any other stuff, I'm glad he's doing other things. We were never told anything of being done besides a concrete swale, and that's when we said we didn't want it. That's probably about all I have, so if there's any questions.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify?
I'm Mark Giesler, live at 7401 North 50th Street. I'd just like to remind everyone, last time we were here a month ago, we were promised this drainage system was going to be put in on the west side of 50th Street, and at that time they were looking to pull the permit. Apparently that took a month to do, and it just got today. I haven't seen anything except for the one neighbor's yard getting worked on. So all the rest of us are kind of just like, okay, apparently we're not making the cut. So I think that says something in itself that, once again, we come back, we've said this at past meetings, that the communication, or lack thereof, hasn't been there, and we're still not getting anything. So I'd just like to say that, and for the record, we moved my sump pump to the front yard. It was late May, and I still have water in my backyard, the back 15 feet, so like whenever we get the rain, I can't mow back there because I'll get stuck. It's an ongoing issue, and I guess apparently I just need to go sue my builder, is what I'm coming away with, and to me that's disheartening. But I guess to me it seems like we've come here, voiced our opinion, shared how we felt, and we thought we were a loud voice, but it seems like we're getting nowhere. So it's just kind of frustrating.
Okay, questions? Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to testify? Cindy.
Could we have Dave Carey come up, please?
Good afternoon, David Carey with the Planning Department.
Hi, thanks for coming up and being here today. So it sounds like there's been some progress made, and I'm really pleased to know that Mr. Schwezo seems to have a plan. Can you kind of update us? But I am still hearing, and even I was getting texts from homeowners that are watching us today about kind of some of the frustration about the communication and not really knowing what's going on. So can you just update us on where we are, where the progress is, and kind of where we go from here?
Yes, so what Roger and Lyle were discussing and providing information on is accurate. The right-of-way permit was submitted today and has already been approved, and that it has to do with the private sump drainage piping system that has been discussed for a few weeks now. So that has been approved just today, and so that can move forward as far as those improvements are concerned. We did receive the administrative amendment updating the plan for the future improvements that have been requested, and that was submitted on Thursday. That has been given a preliminary review and appears to have all the items that we have been requesting. That has not received its full complete review at this time. It also has been sent to the NRD for their review as well, and so we're in the process of getting that approval, that review done, and then approval provided for that amendment, that administrative amendment. But that is not completed yet, but it is, it appears to have everything that we've been discussing, wanting to see coming from the developer. So we're hopeful that that actually will be completed very soon.
And I think you spoke in our other meeting about maybe 2 weeks should give us enough time to have that final approval done.
I would suggest that we do that simply because that would put everything in place so that we have the final full review and approval made of that administrative amendment. And that way that when you take action on this change of zone, you have that in your possession as far as information is concerned. Again, I don't believe that there's any real issue here. We have the momentum now to get this moved forward, but we're not quite to that point where I would still suggest that 2 weeks, that we'd still be at the October 30th meeting, so I'm hopeful that that would be something that the applicant can work with.
And it's been your impression that the developer's been working and trying to get these issues solved, working with you?
Yes, and I would say that the public works staff in particular have been doing a lot of work on this with Roger and Lyle, and so there's been a lot of work, especially in the last week or so, getting a lot of these details laid out. So there's been a lot of work done in that sense.
Is there anything you think we can do better to help these homeowners have a line of communication? Is there anyone on point with that, or do you know?
Well, I mean, from the city side, I would say that we in the planning department as well as in public works, we certainly have the lines of communication are open if there is additional information that wants to be shared at this point in time. But I do believe that this process that we've taken to get to the point we're at now, what I believe we'll be at very soon for final action on the change of zone. I mean, communication has been improving and increasing. I think we can always do better on the communication side, and then maybe perhaps that's something that you might want to discuss with the developer as far as what they feel they've been doing for that communication directly with the homeowners, because I think that side of it's very important with this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go away just yet. During the discussion, Bob Bennis came up and talked about the roles of the homeowners, the builder, the developer, and I know the homeowners, there's just nothing worse than having water problems. As you and Public Works or Building Safety go through all of this, I like the idea of not creating more bureaucracy, but could you comment on the responsibilities here when you deal with like the developer who may or may not have control over the builders when they do digging out the foundations and just dump the land or the dirt there, which is a common practice, and then it fouls up some of the swales or you get gardens planted, and so it's kind of like everyone's responsible, no one's responsible. Unfortunate situation.
Well, I would say, and that I think that is the next set of questions to come from this, as far as what else could be done to try to avoid this as much as possible, and then who would be responsible for that, and how do you do that? We are working with the development community to have a discussion about that. Chad Blaha from Building and Safety has taken the lead on that, and he's had a meeting now with representatives from the development community and the builders, and so there is a discussion about what to do. There is an eye towards trying to limit additional regulation, though. I think that is an understanding that we're trying not to over-regulate. At the same time, we don't want to not see the real issue here. So if there was necessary regulation, that we want to discuss what might work. So we're not quite at that point to know what those answers are yet, but there is the beginning of and an ongoing discussion about that. I would say, though, that from the very beginning on this issue, we, the city, has been feeling and very much so thinking that this particular case very much a civil matter in the sense of property owner to builder most likely is really the crux of the issue. That doesn't necessarily sound good to the homeowner. Being a person that had drainage issues on his own lot, and it's very frustrating, and water is scary. So not at all to minimize the concern that the homeowners have, but from the liability sense in this case, we do feel like that's where it's in a civil matter setting right now, but we are having that conversation with the development community and the builders to figure out what could be done to better, and Bob had a good point, and one of the things we're looking at is to better inform the builders at the time of building permit and construction so that they know better what should happen on the lot, so that it's not as much of an unknown. That might be one direction that we go, and so I know that that's been discussed.
Well, I'm wondering too, we have the Home Builders Association here that's very active, and I think they do some internal education. Is it possible that your department or others can reach out and perhaps at one of their meetings, whatever they have, or some type of educational forum, that this would be discussed to, really impart to them the importance here, and because no home builder wants a bad reputation. I mean, no party in this whole situation wants a bad reputation. Homeowners don't want to have bad results, and so I think somehow in that manner education often solves a lot of challenges.
Yeah, I think I can speak on behalf of Public Works and Building and Safety and Planning that we're certainly very much willing and open to having those discussions, and if there's a desire for those training or information sharing seminars, we'll certainly participate in those. And that may well be part of the strategy that we will eventually come forward with some type of idea of what could be done to help prevent this in the future as much as possible.
I'd almost encourage you just on your own, send a letter to HBAL, the Home Builders Association, just say, we've experienced some challenges here. What can we do to help educate your home builders? And we're seeing new home builders as the generations pass, but it seems like education would be a very constructive solution.
No pun intended.
I agree.
Carl.
Thank you. David, I'm not sure if you're aware that there was a different development in my area in Northwest Lincoln that had some similar problems, and particularly with sump pumps and drainage from them. And in the course of discussing those issues, both with city staff and with engineers, some of that's due to our land, the clay soil we have, and how that doesn't drain very well, and so then how those sump pumps then flow, and there are people that are making curb cuts into the street, and that's not allowed, but it's being done. Otherwise, the water sits there in their lawns and creates a mess, sometimes covers over sidewalks. So I just want to say that I think this issue is more than just in this development, and we do need to have that conversation about, what is it we can do to help alleviate these things before they happen, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy, is to try to get the information pulled together so that we understand it better, and then to see what we can do to prevent it from happening.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The applicant want to come back up?
Yeah. Do you want a rebuttal?
Yes. I would really like to request that you approve these plans, because nothing can happen until administrative amendment is finalized. So there's nothing to hold back you approving it. We're getting so late in the fall. This is 3 months already that we've been trying to progress. And really, there's nothing, that is brought up that is affecting the 4th edition. I mean, this was, or the 4th edition, this is stuff that had happened back in actually the 1st edition is when this here was done. And like I say again, it wasn't what we did, it was because the builders built too low. We're trying to help them out, but there's only so much that you can really do after the fact. I mean, that's, we're getting real close to winter. We're probably going to be pushed back to next spring if we can't go ahead and they won't issue anything until until after even if you approve it, we can't start building it until everybody else signs off on it. It isn't something that's, the minute you approve it, that it happens.
Okay, questions? Jane?
Bob had mentioned that he would have made his builders that he works with take care of this problem.
Because he has something in his contract that says that he's got control of it. I was not aware that you could even do this. Evidently, he is setting the grades for his builders, and I was not aware that you could even do this. I thought once you sold the lot, it was theirs, and you couldn't do anything more on it. And I was not aware that you could establish grades on the lots.
Well, I think some of the homeowners feel that you restricted the builders that they had a choice to hire for this project, and I think they were and still are looking to you for remediation to make sure that some of these issues get resolved. Yeah. And I guess going forward, could you share with us some of your plans for the next edition?
I guarantee you there'll never be a house built too low again.
Okay.
But actually, and this is what's so sad is, everybody is pointing their finger at me when really they should be going after their builder, because it is really a civil matter between them and their builder. I mean, the lots were graded, as Bob said, the way they should have been graded. I mean, the drainage was there if they would have been, the houses built where it should have been. It isn't like we created a monster out there the way we graded it. I mean, everything was signed off by the city. The lot was graded right. It's just the houses got set too low. And then the one where the fence went in and they put the mulch next to the fence, now the water's cutting across their yard, no water standing whatsoever. It's cutting across their yard, and I'm supposed to take care of it. Well, when they put the mulch by the fence and blocked the place where the water is flowing, how can that be my responsibility? And on Vodenoff's, I never, ever, at any time said a concrete swale. I talked about a drainage swale of dirt. They didn't want this V next to their house. When I put the drain line in, I even offered to hook up their sump pump to it, and they didn't want it hooked up. And there's hardly pumps any water. The ones that got a lot of water, there was actually a hill there at one time that we cut down. And this is where the subsurface water is coming from. The houses that are in this next phase are all sitting on fill, so there should be no water problems on any of them, because this was the lower area that was brought up. And I mean, we're not going to have the water problems. And if we do, we've also got the line shown that we can put in next to the curb to pick up the water, because we're not going to have that happen again. I mean, we don't try to do shoddy work.
Cindy.
Thank you. I appreciate all that you've done. I appreciate you coming forward today and letting us know that you're going to share in the cost of some of the mitigation of these issues. I do have a question about the builder, though, because my understanding was, and I think the testimony was, that you actually select the builder, or you have only one or two builders that the homeowners can choose from. And so I'm wondering, are you still using the same builder?
Actually, the real estate agent are the ones that have lined up the builders. I never knew any of the builders. I was never in the home building business. We were always commercial contractors. We were not in the residential end of it. Harry Malone with Berkshire Hathaway had found the builders out there. He originally started with 3 of them, and then they ended up down to, I guess, just 1 of them. At the time these 2 houses were built. When Vodenoff's was built, there was 2 builders. But I mean, as far as somebody else wanting to bring one in, I would not have stopped it, because as long as it was a reputable builder, we were trying to limit who built, because we didn't want some junk thrown up out there. We're trying to make it a nice community, which I think we have accomplished. You know, about all the houses got 3-car garages, and I mean, we're not trying to make them, you know, we want to keep them affordable, but yet nice looking. And that's why we were trying to limit who built out there, because we didn't want something thrown up that was.
So will the next builder be involved in the next, or will the same builder be involved in the next phase?
No, they have not built out there in 3 years now. They've not, that builder is no longer builds there. We don't allow it. he's had some warranty issues that he didn't come back and fix some problems on the houses and stuff, and so we do not let him build anymore.
And do you intend to have a little more oversight against the builders, over the builders this time?
As far as the position of the house on the lot, yes. Yeah, I'll make sure none of them ever get set low again.
Thank you.
Okay, John?
Try to get that contract from Bob and see if he'll let you use that language and be
Yes,
proactive
I
there.
will.
And I just think from a practical standpoint, it's to your favor to have a couple of options if you do want to limit it. I appreciate wanting to keep the quality and the consistency of the construction, but give the potential property owners, homeowners, options.
Yeah, I can put that in there too, because I have no problem with the reputable builder coming in. We were just we had a hard time getting anybody to come that far north. Everybody thought it was too far away from the original downtown that we couldn't get any builders actually out there. And then we finally talked these into trying some spec houses, because it was, well, we've been working on it since probably about 7 years. It's finally caught on now, but it took quite a while, because we're so far off the road you can't see it hardly from the road at all.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you for the efforts you're making, and I know that the planning department is done its preliminary review, but wants more time. We've also heard tonight that some of the homeowners, the current homeowners, don't necessarily feel like they've had great communication during this time of delay that has already taken place. Is there more you could do to help share the progress and the plans and make sure that they're up to date as we move forward? Is that something you've given any consideration to?
Yeah, I actually stopped at Mike's house. I was out there Friday. Both of them were working. I again stopped out there Sunday because I wanted to visit with him. Had a phone number for him. It was not the right number. I did email him, and here again, I thought I had her email address, but I didn't. Got it bounced back. So I did actually try to get a hold of him. As far as voting offs, I think we've done all we can do there to improve it. The water is out of their backyard within 3 hours. I think that's, there's a lot of houses in Lincoln that got water standing a lot longer than that, so I don't think there's anything we can do to really help them. If we put the swale in, we lose the drainage pipe, and if we lose the drainage pipe, there's a pipe that's west of their garden, which that wouldn't drain out then by putting a swale in. So I don't think there's really anything we can do to improve that. And with the Johnson's house, basically, if they take that mulch out of that fence line, we can make the water go where it's supposed to go. So, I mean, I don't know what else I can do there.
Maybe for some of the communication difficulties, the planning department could assist with contact information, given that they do have to be able to notify residents. I mean, that might be something that planning could help you with if you're having trouble contacting people, at least.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
That concludes our public hearing. We can move into the voting session. We'll start with public hearing resolutions. Item 23, the resolution in regards to the Veterans Day Parade introduced by Christensen.
Someone else has to do
So
this.
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Lamb, seconded by Camp.
And we do have the motion to amend to accept a substitute resolution.
Do you have a copy of that for me, Teresa?
I sure do.
Yes, I will move to amend. In accordance with the conversations we had today, the amendment says I hereby move to adopt a substitute resolution attached here to.
Second.
Okay. The amendment moved by Cindy, seconded by John. Discussion?
Yes. Carl. Thanks. In the substitute, line 13, there's a whereas that says, whereas the city of Lincoln believes that Northeast Lincoln would be a suitable location to serve as a focus for a Veterans Day parade. We heard testimony from individuals saying it's not their most suitable place. Could we take that out, or it's a resolution? So
right.
if we were to, the city were to decide, no, we should do something.
And there would be nothing that would stop us from doing that?
Yeah, this doesn't say it has to be.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Cindy?
So, we love the idea of Northeast Lincoln, but I totally get what they're saying. And I think, yeah, I think that probably I think Lincoln is a suitable place to do a Veterans Day parade. And I think that that does give us an opportunity to move it around if need be, or if they like that, or if we decide to go downtown, or somebody wants to fund that.
Steve Martin once says, "Be so good they can't ignore you," and I would say, let's make this parade so good it can't be ignored and has to be moved to a bigger venue.
Right, right. Yeah, we heard.
That happens through public support, so.
And I guess like when we had the last hearing, we heard folks that were asking, why don't you do it down 70th Street to the parade ground that's at the Vets property there at their parade ground. So I think, yeah, I like the idea of keeping that open. So.
John?
Do you have an
So,
amendment?
I guess, what is the impact then of this substitute?
Basically, it reflects the discussions we had with staff to limit costs at this point in time. Okay, and to reflect give it more flexibility in terms of exactly when and where the parade would take place.
I guess as I read it, I'm not getting that.
Well, it's just clarifying language to make it easier to do what the applicant would like to do in terms of the when, where, make it be able to be moved around, Husker football games. It could be a Saturday, it could be a Sunday, those kind of things.
Well, I really appreciate the initial measure you brought forward and the whole concept. As you could see with the number of veterans in the audience as well as those who spoke, there's a strong concern there. Mm-hmm. And I think veterans are feeling more and more concerned in lieu of some national events going on, and that we're losing a little touch. We may give lip service, but we're losing a little touch with respect for those individuals who do serve, and that applies to both veterans as well as current individuals who are on duty, and the recruiting of other individuals. And I mean that's important to our nation's well-being. It's very challenging out there today with some of these spots. So
I'm not going to disagree with anything you say. What I will say is this is just a start. This is a beginning, a place to begin the process of growing a parade.
Right.
Carl.
I would move an amendment to on line 13 that we remove the word northeast. That's a location. There are other locations. Let in the planning process figure out where the best place is.
Okay, very good.
Would you remove lines 13 and 14? Just take the whole.
No, just the word northeast.
Just the word northeast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that would satisfy that.
I'd like to second that, and unless somebody did.
So amending the amendment, moved by Carl, seconded by Jane, to remove the word northeast.
Is amending a substitute.
Amending a substitute,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Discussion on the amendment to the substitute. Please call the roll.
I want to say something. I think Larry wanted to say
Go
something.
ahead.
I was just going to support John. Actually, I think that if you take out the word northeast, which I'm fine with, it just says the city of Lincoln believes that Lincoln would be a suitable location to serve as a focus for Veterans Day Parade. I mean, the whole resolution is about that. So you could, I think, take out both lines if you wanted to, but I will support either way.
Very good. So please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, now on the substitute amendment.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, next item.
Do we need a vote on the main motion?
Oh, that's it. We substituted, now we need to vote again. Yes.
Okay. Camp?
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next in, item 24 is the 1 and 6-year Streets and Highway Program, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Benny, seconded by Jane. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 25 is the amended conservation easement agreement, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Benny, seconded by Lyrian. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 26 is the application to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission for land and water conservation grant funding assistance, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Benny, seconded by Jane. Discussion? We'll go John, then Jane.
I'd just like to again reemphasize my concern that the strings attached to this and I just have a discomfort on adding to these types of grants. I think sometimes we chase a few dollars and we lose sight of the big picture. We end up spending more, and it's not, it really needs to be evaluated in that way to see what happens long term.
Jane?
You know, I wholeheartedly support this initiative. This is in my district. These are vibrant playground areas and park areas that are heavily used by the neighbors, and they love it, from Irvingdale to Stransky to Rudge. It's a vibrant, active area, certainly with the swimming pool, the tennis courts, and we recognize that it has been a park for over 100 years, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to stay a vibrant part of our recreation usage for at least 100 more years. And I think it's well overdue for some park improvements that the neighborhood and the Country Club Neighborhood Association is willing to step up and support. I think this is the type of partnership that we are so proud of in our city of Lincoln, where we have the Parks Foundation, Parks and Rec come together, and the neighborhoods come together because they recognize that it is a vital part to their community. I have to tell you, I grew up ice skating there, and my kids would come back to Nebraska for Christmas, and we would play broom ball when there was ice. So we have lots of bruises to show for that, but it's a great park. It is a beautiful part of our city, and I'm just thrilled that we're going to continue to maintain it.
Okay, further comment? Lyrian?
Yeah, I'm really pleased to support this project as well, and we've had a lot of citizen involvement in helping shape the vision for making this even more user-friendly. Just to your concern, John, I appreciate what you're saying about constraints and not wanting to accept constraints, but I think the real constraints in the parks are the stream channel that runs through it. I think it's actually one of the reasons most likely that these were turned into parklands, because it'd be so difficult to put housing or other development right on top of these particular parks. They've got culverts, like we said, running through them. So along with the stormwater management work that the Parks and Rec Department is accomplishing with the support of Lincoln residents, these improvements will make these parks even better than they are today. And I'm very pleased to support it.
Okay, please call the roll.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 27 is the public health nuisance abatement costs, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Benny, seconded by Jane.
We do have a motion to amend number 1 to remove the property of 1112 New Hampshire.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cindy, seconded by Benny. Discussion? Please call the roll.
If I
Get there?
If I could, I just want to point out that this, my understanding is that perhaps this has already been satisfied, so that's why it's being removed from the list, so.
Okay, please call the roll.
Camp.
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Now on the main motion.
That was the motion to amend, was to remove the claim of.
To amend attachment, there's two of them that are showing up on.
There's Is there another one?
Main motion.
Motion to amend, motion to amend attachment.
Okay.
What is the second one, the attachment, please?
The, I'm presuming the attachment is the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They redid this.
So moved. The attachment is all of the list of the properties absent the one that's
Okay.
mentioned.
Second.
Go there.
Moved by Carl, seconded by Jane.
Excuse me for a second. The motion to amend number 1 includes the attachment. If you read up there, it says listed on Exhibit A attached here too.
Okay, it shows up in the agenda as two separate items.
It must have been scanned and input, but I think we already
It must have
adopted
been scanned separately then, when it could have been scanned as one document.
So we're good.
So we're good.
Now let's do the main motion.
Okay. Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then, public hearing ordinances second reading are items 28 and 29. Public hearing ordinance third reading is item 30, change of zone 17011, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jane, seconded by Carl. Discussion.
Yes, thank you. So I appreciate the progress that's been made, and but I would like to make a motion to delay this for 2 weeks to get that review finalized before we actually take a vote, and hopefully there will be some conversation. So I'll make the motion first, and then I can talk.
Right. So do you want to put a date to that?
It would be October 30th, I think.
Okay.
Do you want public hearing and action?
Yes, please.
Second.
Okay, moved by Cindy, seconded by Jane. Discussion?
So, as I said, I think it'll give a little bit of time for communication too, and I do hope that the developer will communicate again with those homeowners, and I do appreciate the efforts that have already been made, and I know it took a while for the permit to be processed and so forth, but going forward, I think it'll just feel better if we can get everything, all our ducks in a row and so forth, so.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Camp?
No.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. All right, ordinances third reading. Item 31 is approving the skate zone redevelopment agreement introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jane, seconded by Carl. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 32 is amending the fiscal year 17-18 CIP to authorize and appropriate $960,000 in TIF funds for the skate zone project, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jane, seconded by Carl. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 33 is the issuance of the tax allocation bonds for the skate zone project, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jane, seconded by Carl. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 34 is amending Chapter 5.50 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to taxi cabs, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jane, seconded by Carl. We'll wait just a moment for Councilwoman Lamb to exit the chamber. Discussion, please. John.
Yeah, I'd like to,
Catch a cat.
I'd like to make a motion that we delay this until our December 4th meeting.
And this would just be for action only.
No, public hearing and action.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay.
As I've reviewed this matter, I think that the legislation before us is aimed at taxi cabs versus the TNCs, the Lyfts and the Ubers. And I think that's the wrong focus. I'm very concerned that we have a consistent oversight of the of the drivers in public transportation. And I look at this as a public safety endeavor on our part. And I visited with the attorneys for both groups, talked with some other city officials, and what I want to encourage is in this time period till December 4th is that they sit down and visit about that, get Chief Bleimeister in there because he had some concerns with administrative costs for the city, and really review how it is best to regulate or require review, whether it be any driver for offering public transportation. So that would include taxi cabs, that include the Uber, Lyfts, that would include the limousine service, buses, that we have a standard. The goal in mind is to protect the public and not to get involved in what industry or whatever. And I think that that could be done, include the Public Service Commission so they can talk about some of the procedures they have, and then just adopt a uniform oversight and requirement for all those individuals who are driving for public transportation. So that's my purpose in asking for the delay, get all the relevant parties at the table and come up with a revision.
Okay. Larry?
Could we have law come up and discuss the process that was undertaken during this rather lengthy period of time that went into crafting this legislation? Could you address some of John's concerns about who's been in discussion, who's collaborated to bring this forward, and whether or not a consistent standard makes sense when, in fact, you have people starting from different places based on state regs?
Yeah, Chris Connolly, Chief Assistant City Attorney. I haven't been involved in all the discussions, but I know there have been a number of discussions with Uber and the taxi cab companies. What I've been advised of, though, is that while Uber was contacted early on in this process, we've heard nothing from them until about the last 2 weeks in this process. And so in terms of some of the more specifics of exactly what was discussed, I'm sorry, I don't have that information. But it sounds like there have been no issues with this until very recently.
I was disappointed none of the TNCs, the Ubers, Lyfts were here and testified. I mean, it was legislation for their benefit, and it seems like they just let the administration and the mayor carry the ball, and I don't think that's the appropriate way to handle things.
Jane?
Chris, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but Lyft and Uber have been operating in our state for a number of years. Is that fair to say?
Yes, 2 or 3 years, correct.
2 or 3 years. And then it's my understanding, and we've heard certainly from a number of people, that they are being regulated by the Public Service Commission.
Yes.
That they have undergone sporadic audits during that time frame and found no violations of their criminal background checks and the other testing and requirements that they have in place for all their drivers.
I believe that is correct. I'm not aware of any of those issues that have been discovered. They are responsible for doing all the background checks, and I am not aware of any problems that have developed as a result of that process being in place.
Okay, other comments? Benny?
I have a question. And kind of echoing what John was saying, it would be nice if we had a nice uniform when, right now, the Public Service Commission has kind of categorized them in 2 different categories. If we tried to unify a city, would we be in violation of state law?
Tried to unify, I'm sorry, if we wanted to unify.
If we came up with some unified legislation where taxi cabs, limousines, and transportation networks were together, which would be a little bit contrary to state law, would we be in violation? Could we face any?
There certainly would, yes, there could be some possible problems with that. Now, does that mean we couldn't work it out? I don't know. We'd have to look at that. Obviously, the best way to resolve that is through state legislation that would take care of unifying all those kinds of problems. But as I sit here today, I can't tell you that there wouldn't be any legal issues if we tried to come up with something on our own.
Thank you.
Chris, so it's fair to say that through the state and the State Public Service Commission, they have oversight of Lyft and Uber, but for the city, we have oversight of the taxi cab.
That is correct. And the PSC does have some regulation over cabs too, but yes, it is generally the city that has regulation over the cabs.
So I don't know, John, if you're suggesting that we try to get something resolved by December 4th where we say to the state, hey, do you want to manage our taxi cab service in the city of Lincoln? Right now, we have regulations.
Actually, the State Public Service Commission does heavily regulate taxi cab services. They set their rates. They set both the top rate and the bottom rate. They dictate their hours. There's a large regulation by the Public Service Commission of
they
taxi.
are involved, yes.
More heavily than we
What
might
the city
want.
does.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just don't see, well, number one, in answer to Mr. Abel's question, I would hope that something come out, and that's why I suggested the Public Service Commission be at the table, even a representative from Omaha be at the table, so that, because I believe those are the two main markets that have the TNC, the Ubers and the Lyfts.
I have a question for you. In regards to, right now we're discussing, we should probably try to limit our discussion to the motion to delay. And the question I have is there some sort of time sensitivity on this ordinance?
No.
Well, I beg to differ. I talked to Mr. Kirkpatrick. Well, it's not differ, but Mr. Kirkpatrick said if nothing's done, he needs to start enforcing the oversight of the TNCs, the Ubers and the Lyfts, because he's just kind of left it in limbo pending seeing what happens on this measure.
But if we declared an intent to act, would that?
I think he'd be comfortable. He just, because I talked about this whole idea.
Well, we've been not enforcing our city ordinances for some time now.
Right.
On this particular issue.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about public safety and that drivers are qualified. And I'm not saying no driver currently isn't, and then let's have it on a uniform basis. Let's not pick out and treat one group differently than another.
I think that, go ahead.
We'll go
Commissioner Eskridge.
Leary and then Carl.
I have nothing. I'm just pointing.
Okay, Carl.
Okay, all right. So I agree with John that equal playing field is important, and to do that is I think to our advantage to get to that equal playing field. One thing we could do today would be to pass what's before us, and then if taxi cabs wanted to have the same rules, that could be brought before us, and we could act on that accordingly.
Okay. Any other comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason, I mean, it would seem like it's common sense to have the same rules apply if they were starting off in the same place, but right now they aren't. And what we heard from Chief Blymeister is that he doesn't see a need for LPD to duplicate or replicate the same background checks that are being done at the state level on the local level. And in fact, that would also not only be a duplication that would be unnecessary, but it adds to the workload for LPD. And we know that they already have a significant workload, and we're trying to find ways to make them more nimble and have their workload more directed to the concerns on our streets. So I don't know why we would set up a duplication of background checks just to do the same thing to taxi cab drivers who don't have the same starting point at the state level. And so I don't know what the delay would allow us to accomplish that hasn't already really been discussed in pulling together what we think makes sense to create a business-friendly set of circumstances that promote competition and add to our transportation network in Lincoln. One that we believe is safe, one that the chief said anecdotally he believes is actually helping to improve safety across Nebraska.
I just have to comment. That isn't what I'm saying. I want Chief Blymeister at the table, and I'm saying focus on the drivers. Why do we not want, for public safety, a uniform review of them? And I'm not saying have duplicate reviews. I'm saying let's see if we can't craft something for Nebraska that provides that. You know, you may remember a couple of years ago we encouraged more taxi cabs to come into Lincoln to help on the Friday, Saturday night overload and so forth, and they came. But I don't want to get into the business market. You know, down the road, we're going to have autonomous public transportation, and we need to deal with that. But somehow, I just emphasize, the driver, have a review of the driver, background checks or whatever, that's done uniformly for the protection of the public. It has nothing to do with what entity you are, who regulates you, and all your other things. I'm just saying, focus on the driver. This is not doing that. This is focusing on one industry, and I'm not trying to be unfriendly to anybody. They're here. We're not closing the door or what have you. It's say, let's sit down, get the representatives there. As Mr. Conley said, apparently the Uber people only came to the table 2 weeks ago. And I think that with major legislation like this, to have it proposed on their behalf, that, and not to testify at our hearing before, I don't understand that.
Okay. I'll have the last word here, I think, and say that I do not feel there's a sense of urgency that things are going to fall through the cracks if we delay. So I'll support the delay. Please call the roll on the delay.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
No.
Gaylor Baird?
No.
Raybold?
No.
Schob?
No.
Motion lost, 2-4.
Okay. Discussion on the main motion. And we've already discussed quite a bit here. So,
Mr. Chair, I understand what John is saying, and our vote today won't preclude us having those continuing conversations about that. I think some type of uniformity. I feel the Public Service Commission kind of put us in a bind by breaking them into two categories, and we have to deal with that and get back on track. I think it starts there, and having them at the table would be a wonderful idea.
You're putting this on the books, and you're favoring one player in the marketplace over others. It's not uniformity, and they haven't participated in the process, which is disappointing.
would you be willing to bring forward a piece of legislation that would then take a look at how we regulate taxi cabs for the city?
I'm not going to support this. I think this is all wrong. We're not looking at the public interest, and we're not looking at the drivers, and that's the crux of it.
Okay.
Let's leave out what type of entity it is. That's not for us to do here. And let's get all the parties at the table, review it, get the Omaha people, the PSC people, Public Service Commission, get Chief Blymeister, get the Uber, get the taxi cabs, and let them, along with our city attorney and whomever, and really craft something that focuses on the drivers and public safety.
Okay. Carl?
Well, what's before us is about the transportation network companies and how they do business. And, you know, I think it's really important that there are background checks taken, and there are. In talking to their representatives, I'm satisfied that the company is doing that, and that the Public Service Commission is also checking their work. And that's the most important thing in our community, that service is provided safely, whether it's through the transportation network companies or through taxi cabs, either way. And also, as John had mentioned earlier too, the important service that they both provide to the community, because members of the Internal Liquor Committee may remember that previously we didn't have enough service, and it was a problem, and we saw a much higher number of DUIs than we have currently. And so the services that are provided by both are really important to our community: public safety, convenience, helping disabled people get around. Lots of good services that are provided. So I'm supportive of what we have before us today. There may be more that could be done, and if that's so, certainly we'll want to consider it.
Jane.
You know, I too am very satisfied that we're doing everything in the interest of public safety, certainly reaching out to the representatives and finding out that the Public Service Commission actually does the audits, and they are satisfied on behalf of public safety that Lyft and Uber are in compliance and that the drivers that work for them have undergone all the criminal background checks and are in compliance with all the regulations. So, and certainly with Chief Blythemeister saying it is a great market tool that they've brought to the city of Lincoln that has assisted with their efforts at making sure that those individuals that have over-imbibed are gotten home safely. And we have heard no untoward incidents of any violations of that trust that they have worked with residents in the city of Lincoln. So I do support this. It's a different business model, and I think it's something that we can continue to talk about, and hopefully, John, you'll work with the taxi cab companies to see if they want us to do something more to make sure that, you know, I don't think government should be in the business of making sure that there's a level playing field in where the market actually makes these balances and corrections, but I certainly feel very comfortable that public safety issues are dealt with and that the public should feel good utilizing both services.
Okay. Larry?
And I just want to add that what I hope and what I expect that introducing more competition into the transportation market here in Lincoln is that we'll have continued safety and improved service for riders.
I absolutely understand what John is saying, and I agree with Benny in that this is a difficult situation that has been essentially handed to us by the Public Service Commission. And we find ourselves in the position of passing an ordinance that will probably benefit one business model over another, and that's really distasteful to me. I will support this for one reason and one reason only, and that's because Chief Blythemeister testified that it will be to the benefit of our police department. Please call the roll.
Camp?
No.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1.
5.
Yeah.
5-1, thank you.
We need Cindy back.
Yes, we need Cindy back.
Next then would be item 25, change of zone 17021. And this was introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
25? 35.
35.
So I need a second.
Second.
Moved by Jane, seconded by Lyrian. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Can I ask what I'm voting on?
This is item 35, change of zone 17021.
Okay, yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Resolutions on first reading are items 36 through 43. Our ordinances on first reading are items 44 through 53. Our pending list date certain is item 54. And our regular pending list are items 55 through 58. As I mentioned at the pre-council or directors meeting at 2 o'clock, item 58, we did have a request to remove this from pending for action only on October 23rd.
So moved.
Moved by Cindy, seconded by Lyrian. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. That is all we have for today.
Today's
Open
open mic.
mic.
Open mic.
Oh, yes. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time.
Mr. Chair, seeing nobody skipping forward here, I would move for adjournment.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Cindy. Please call the roll.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We're adjourned.